All right, greetings from South Georgia, USA. Greetings to the entire world. We are outside the greenhouse today because it is hot as Hades in there. And not that I've ever been to Hades, but maybe it's pretty hot in there. But we're out here rooting some brown turkey fig cuttings. And we are rooting them in the Bellet grow bags that look like this. They're some kind of a fabric woven, very reasonably priced. The roots will grow right through it. And they look like this. And the little tote is a $2 tote. They'll hold 6 bags from Lowe's. Now I was wanting to talk about the technique here. And these techniques of horticulture were hidden or closely guarded in the past by people that knew how to do them. And they basically didn't want people to know how to do this. And it would be the same with different guilds back in the Middle Ages, that they wanted to hide their knowledge so that they could make money at it and charge more. And horticulture was one of them. The nursery people that knew how to do this stuff, they weren't about to tell you, the public, how to do it. And they tried their best to get the employees not to tell. And the employees, after they really learned the technique, they might have gone out and started their own nursery business, but they would have no incentive for telling people how to do that either. And many of the arts and crafts were that way. And it goes right on back into ancient times. The Chinese were notorious for hiding the secret of gunpowder and how silk was made. The Chinese managed to hide the silk industry, the silkworm and the cocoons and all of the different procedures for maybe 1,000 years before people finally figured out what they were doing and other people began to produce silk. They even had an attempt to start a silk industry in Georgia in the early days when Oglethorpe came over from England with a grant from the king to establish a colony. And he landed in Savannah, Georgia, and started Savannah, the colony of Georgia. And they brought silk technology with them. And they also brought mulberry trees, which the silkworms must have. They eat mulberry leaves. And they did establish a silk industry for a while, but it didn't flourish, and other things began to take over. Some of those mulberry trees are still around Georgia, and some of them have crossed with Native American mulberries. But the point I'm making is that the Bible predicted and said that in the end times, knowledge would be increased. And I'm thinking that knowledge is being increased, and thanks to the internet. Also, the universities in the early colonial period also spread knowledge. And so they weren't in the business of guarding technology. They were in the business of spreading technology. So they taught people how to use the nursery industry, how to clone, how to graft, and all that sort of thing. And then some of those professors wrote books about it. I'm talking in the late 1800s and 1910s, 1920s, and 30s. The knowledge began to get out to the public. And my grandfather actually went to the University of Georgia in about 1916 and was taught how to graft trees. And he grafted the first pecan trees that were grown around this area of Georgia and started a pecan orchard. That pecan orchard made it up until about 1980, whenever it was finally bulldozed down to make room for a shopping center. Okay, knowledge would be increased, which shows me that the Bible knew what it was talking about. Okay, so this rooting right here, my grandmother actually knew how to do that. She learned it in the Ladies' Garden Club, and she also was born at about 1900 and learned how to do these things, and she showed me how to do it. She didn't start out to teach me, she just did it, and I saw her do it, and I guess she told me what was going on. She rooted fig trees. When I was in my late 20s and early 30s, I began to try to learn how to graft trees, and I had a great deal of trouble learning. I had a textbook that I ordered, and it was drawn in ink. It was drawings, and probably more due to my inability to read properly, I made several failed attempts at grafting, but I finally got it down. Well, nowadays you can go on YouTube and find tutorials on grafting that are excellent, that show every detail of every kind of tree, how to do it, how to match up the layers, everything, time of year, and everything. Now we are going to make a little break right here, and I'm going to gather my thoughts, and I'm going to finish showing you how to root this brown turkey rooting. All right, now I called this a rooting a while ago. It's not a rooting, that is a cutting. This cutting has nodes on it. See the nodes? That's where the leaves come out and the buds come out. The leaf comes out in that brownish area and the buds come out above it. That's how you can tell which is up, right side up. The leaves go down, the buds go on top. And this is a cutting from a brown turkey fig that I bought at Tractor Supply the other day. It was the only one that they had. And I have taken quite a few cuttings off of the tree because it had some pretty long branches to it, which are not needed. All I need is a little bit like that to plant the tree in the ground. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. You need, and this is done in the spring, in the winter, spring, and early summer, and you can do it at other times too, but this is the ideal time because the weather is mild. Okay, now you will need the cutting. You will need some of this stuff right here. Now you don't have to have it, but this is a reasonably bought, easy thing to buy. This is called laboratory film. It comes in a box, and the reason it rolls out on, the reason I use this is because it's a good parafilm. Para is paraffin. This is paraffin made into a film. Kind of like saran wrap, but it's paraffin. Parafilm. And you can cut this with scissors. Now I cut me a piece off and then I split it in half. And the reason for that is because, and when I cut it in half, it's not as wide. And for my purpose, and it has a piece of paper on it, and you take the paper off when you get ready to use it. If it weren't for that paper, this stuff would stick together. Okay, so the parafilm keeps the cutting from drying out. Now, in the past, they used wax. They would put wax on them. But this is much more convenient, and the plant can breathe through this. So the parafilm is only put on the part that's sticking above the ground. Now it stretches, and you stretch it a little, and you start wrapping it, and I'm going up. If you stretch it too far, it'll break. I'm going up like a barber pole. I'm going up, and when I get to the node, I want to make sure that I cover the node, but I do not want, and I want to cover it with a stretched piece because it's thinner, because the bud is going to have to grow through that. So I stretch it and I go right over the node, stretch it a little more. Now I don't want to go back over the node twice because that'll make it hard for the bud to break out. It could break out though. And at the top, I kind of twirl it around a couple of times and break it off and bend it over, and it'll stick to itself. Now the end is covered. That's what they used to put wax on. This is wonderful stuff right here. And like I said, the reason I use this is because it's a 250-foot roll. And if you keep it reasonably cool, you don't want to sit that in your greenhouse all summer. This stuff will last for many years. I don't know what that was, but it's pretty cheap. It's called laboratory film, and they use it in the laboratories for putting over test tubes to seal them up and different things like that. Okay, now that I have wrapped my cutting above the nodes, these two nodes here are going to be under the dirt. Now I have scraped the bark off until I see green. Now that green is called the cambium layer. Now if I were to scrape it down harder, you would see white, and you don't really want that. You just want the green. And that helps the cutting form roots. Okay? And now you take this other product. This is called Clone-X, and it is a purple viscous liquid, and it has a chemical in it that encourages this fig cutting to get roots. Now, it is a well-known fact that figs and many other plants will root without the Clone-X, because rooting is a natural process that comes into play in nature when a tree or a branch encounters the ground, like a storm blows it down, and it'll fall. It'll still be attached usually to the tree, and then debris will get on top of it, leaves and stuff like that, and that doggone thing will start growing roots and form another tree. Well, that's a natural process. So what we're doing is we're tricking this cutting into thinking that it has been thrown to the ground by a storm. And I try to keep this stuff thin. I scrape it out thin, and then you let it dry. I've got 4 others over here. I just put them down on a little piece of wood, and I let them dry for a while. And it forms a film. That's important, to let it dry. I think you get better results. But many a person has rooted cuttings in the past with no Clone-X. Some people use aloe vera leaves as a natural rooting hormone. Some of those work, but you don't have to have anything. In the old days, my grandmother, she just dug a hole in the ground in her backyard, kind of in a shaded area, stuck her fig cutting in the ground, and she had her hose hooked up, and she would drip the hose right near it so that it would stay wet. And voila, 2 months later, there was a small fig tree there. And she would take that then and plant it. Okay, knowledge will be increased. And this knowledge is out there for anybody. So you don't have to pay if you want to have a good garden, a good fruit tree yard, if you're going to get one or two, you don't probably just, unless you just are interested, just go buy the tree at Lowe's or wherever. But if you're in a small holding, a prepper type farm, then you're going to want to learn how to do this. Now, we don't know. We know that in the end times, knowledge will be increased. But we also know that in the end times are the end times. And those end times are going to be rough as a cob, as they say. That's a saying from South Georgia. He's going to get hurt like that. All right, so now we're going to pause again, and I'll get right back to you. All right, now I have got 6 of these in this little tote. I don't have but 4 brown turkey rootings or cuttings. I guess they're cuttings at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I got some other kind of figs that I'll use. Now these have already had the parafilm on them. And they've had this Clonex that's partially dried. So we're going to stick this down so that these 2 nodes, one here and one here, are under the ground. And I started the parafilm just above that node. Now that tells me how far to stick it. Right there. Now I like to do that afterwards. Okay, now let's have a look at this one. Actually, I've got 2 more of them that I didn't put parafilm. But here's another one here. Node here, and we're going to stick it in the ground into there. Now I did poke some holes, okay? And what I like to do is just tighten it up just a little bit down around it so that it won't just be a big hole, so that it will make good contact like that. Okay, I'm going to put parafilm on this one, and I thought I had done them all, but I hadn't. Another little tip on this paper that's on this parafilm, it's hard to get this off sometimes, but I found that if you just take it and kind of tear it a little bit, see what I did there? I just kind of did like that, and there, now it is torn. Oh, whoop, come back here, parafilm. And now I can see the paper won't stretch, but the parafilm will. So the paper tears and the parafilm bunches up where you can find it. Now, I should have wrapped this one before I put the Clonex. And the reason is that you don't want to get this stuff on your hands. And I don't know what I was thinking about. I was running my mouth, trying to be clever. Now see, there's a little bud right there. See that green on that one? Some people say to take them off. All right, so I'm starting right above that node. Stretching it. Now I'm going over this node here. Stretch it, but don't break it. Stretch it, but don't break it. Oh, I almost broke it. Stretch it and go around. Stretch it a little more. See, it's stretchy. And now go stretch it and go over the node. Don't break it, don't break it. And now I'm over the node. And now I twirl it around the end a couple of times and then over. Break it and bend it down, and that one there is ready to go. And I'll stick it in to right there. All right, we got enough parafilm to do the last one. All right, here we go. Now this is a very short one right here. There was only 3 nodes on this piece, and since it's roots that you want, and the roots form around the nodes, if you have 3 nodes, my thinking on it is you'd want 2 of them below the ground and 1 of them above the ground. If you got 4 nodes, it'd be 2 below the ground and two above the ground. But one of the problems with it is that this, now I'm stretching it over this top node, just stretching it, and now twirl it around the end a couple of times and then back over the top, and it kind of sticks to itself. All right, one of the problems is that the nodes on different trees are different distances apart, and this particular cutting, the nodes are pretty far apart, and if I'd left 4 of them, that would have left me a cutting about that long, and that wouldn't have gone down far enough to get them both under the ground. So I compromised 2 nodes below and 1 node above, and this is where the bud will come out. Okay, down to there. Now we're going to take our little packing stick, and we're just going to make sure that this is kind of packed around it just a little bit. You don't have to go crazy. There we go. Now I will mark these. I should have already marked them. Okay, I'm really losing my mind. Since I only have 4 brown turkey cuttings, and I'm going to have to get some other kinds to go in here. So I should have marked them. So here I go, messing up again, and I'll show you how you mark them. This is a Scripto paint medium paint marker and oil. And this works very well. Let's just take this one out. And I'm going to mark this as BT, brown turkey. That'll stay pretty good. Same thing here. Try not to put it near a node. I'm going to put BRT. For brown turkey. Down to there. All right, you get the idea. We're going to pause now, and I'm going to go try to scrounge up 4 more fig cuttings from different kinds, because this is all the brown turkey I've got. And I'll get back to you in just a minute. Okay, I called this a Scripto a while ago, and that's because my eyes are 73 years old. That's a Sharpie paint medium oil paint marker, not a Scripto. Now we'll pause again while I scrounge up some more figs. Okay, I scrounged up, I had these 4 brown turkey, and I scrounged up 4 Celeste, and they were they're fairly small ones. They're usually big as your little finger is the preferred size, but these will also root I just wrote CEL on the actual bellet grow bag because they're too small to write on. All right, so let's go in. We're going to go put these in the grow room, and we're going to see what happens and watch nature do its amazing work that God has designed it to do. And we are going to also contemplate our mortality. I hope that we are. And if you have not confessed and believed in the Lord Jesus Christ, I can promise you, if you are in your 30s, 20s, 30s, or even 40s, as you think that you have an unlimited amount of time ahead of you, I can promise you, as one that is in my 73, almost 74, that time will go just like that, and you will be looking back. There's no time like the present to get serious about this life. For as the saying goes, we are mortal. Mortal means that we are not immortal. That means we will die. And Jesus has promised us a way out of that sticky situation. That if we would look upon him on the cross, and if we could see that he was God's Son, come to save us, if we would only believe that that was what he did, and if we would confess him means to say, yes, Jesus, I do believe you. I do confess. I do believe you. Will you give me that eternal life? If you will say that today, then as the Bible teaches and as Jesus taught, you have passed from death unto life. If you have not confessed Jesus, you are essentially dead right now. Dead, and you got a few years maybe, or a few days or something like that, but you are a dead man walking. Consider Jesus again if you have in the past rejected him. If you will ask him to save you, he will. And if you are in some kind of deep sin or problems like that, don't let that stop you from asking Jesus to save you. That's what he came to do, is to save you from that stuff. And he will immediately cause you to be born again with the heart of God, and the Holy Spirit and Jesus, will work diligently to help you kick the different habits that have gotten you shackled and in a miserable life. And that's the message of the gospel. And so thank you for watching, and keep in tune, and we'll try to keep you updated on the figs and the different things we're doing out here. Thank you for watching.